surprised to see a change at the quarterback position there. I think we would be surprised to see a change at the quarterback position in Pittsburgh, but I'm here to tell you it's not out of the question. Ben Roethlisberger's cap number this year is $41.25 million, the highest in the league, and the Steelers have made it clear that they cannot carry that. So something has to be done. An adjustment must be made to Ben Roethlisberger's contract if he's to be on this year's Steelers team. It remains to be seen whether he and the team can work that out. And here's a player whose team needs to work something out with him pretty quickly. Deshaun Watson does not want to be in Houston. The Houston Texans are still telling teams that call about a trade that they don't want to trade him. Obviously, something is going to have to give there. This could linger into the summer. They have a new GM there. They definitely do not want to move on from Deshaun Watson. They may end up in a position where they have to, and their best move is to use him as a chip to refill their stock of draft picks. So this story will hang over the league for months.
Okay, so let me come back to you on that one there. Nick Caserio is the new general manager that we're talking about. And here's the way I look at this. If I were he, and I knew already I have to trade Deshaun Watson, I would be saying exactly what he's saying right now. I would be telling the world I'm not trading him. So do we have any insight as to whether or not they have privately come to the conclusion that Watson is not bluffing, that he's genuinely never coming back there, and that ultimately he will have to be dealt?
I don't think that front office has come to that conclusion, even privately. I think they still believe it can be patched up. The question, of course, is whether they're right, whether they're kidding themselves. But Nick Caserio took that job either knowing that this was going to happen or believing he was going to have Deshaun Watson at quarterback. Those are two very different things. And I think it's the latter. And if that's the case, he needs to recalibrate and get to a point where what's best for this franchise? Do we dig in our heels and call his bluff, or do we deal him and get the high draft picks that we've traded away, or my predecessor traded away the past couple of years?
It does make sense that he may not have known that because, frankly, it seems to have been his hiring, even if it isn't him in particular, that was the last straw here and created these problems. Marcus, what do you think?
It's irreparable. It's not going. I believe Deshaun Watson to sit out before he goes back and plays for the Houston Texans. I think this relationship is soured, and obviously it's from the top in Cal McNair and ownership. So when you look at Deshaun Watson making these statements that he's made by not saying much, but also knowing that what we want, what we see him wanting his future to be, there's no other conclusion to come to. And you have to earn that opportunity to be in this position that Deshaun Watson is in. He knew that it would be high trade value for him. He knew that this was probably the right time to move along after this latest thing transpired, outside of the litany of things that have taken place before this. So I believe he'll suit up for another team next year. And if the Houston Texans are smart, didn't I just show y'all what the hell they got for that DeAndre Hopkins trade? They need some more stuff. They need to just look forward to the future. I know it's hard to let Deshaun Watson go, and it's not the right thing to let a franchise player go, but they need to let it go. This is irreparable.
Jeff, you've been saying all along you wouldn't trade it no matter what. Have you changed that perspective at all?
I don't know, not at all. Listen, if I'm a GM there, a head coach there, I get what has happened with Deshaun Watson and the owner, and literally there's nothing you can do about it, right? You're both new to this whole organization, but you understand how valuable Deshaun Watson is, and I don't mean just as a quarterback. I mean as a man in the community and Houston, and what he does not only for his locker room, but for everybody around that city and for all the fans. To give him up and to allow him to go somewhere else without sitting out games or without forcing his hand, I would continue my trying to repair a relationship for the next 6 months and just explain to him, we are going to give you everything we possibly can. Set out what you have to have for us for you to stay here, and let's work through this process. And I think that's what they have to go to, with true vulnerability and true transparency. Listen, we've screwed this thing up. What can we do to make you happy and get this thing back together, and then allow Deshaun Watson to dictate that transition, and then you have the guy that you want to build your team around. That's who you want to be running the Houston Texans in 10 years.
I get it, and we'll see. If they're able to figure that out, then great. Expect something to happen, and expect it soon. What is the latest we're hearing out of Philadelphia?
Yeah, Greeny, it absolutely could happen soon if the Eagles get what they're looking for. Right now, they're asking for more than teams are willing to pay, and that will slow things down if that doesn't change. The date to watch is March 20th. That's when the Eagles have to pay Carson Wentz a $10 million roster bonus. Now, obviously, that becomes a deadline because if you're going to trade him, you don't want to pay that. You'd rather have the acquiring team do it. So that gives them some time to hold firm on their demands, which I'm told so far have been more than the interested teams have been willing to pay. But if they get a couple teams in it, and we've heard the Bears, we've heard the Colts, if they get a couple teams in it, then they can definitely start to drive that price up.
So this is fascinating, Marcus. Yesterday, someone made the point on this program that the Eagles are acting like they're trading Matthew Stafford, when in reality, Carson Wentz is a lot closer to the Jared Goff side of that trade than he is the Stafford side of that trade. Marcus, how do you look at it?
It's actually, it's crazy, man. Like, I'm thinking about how to word Carson Wentz's situation, or to think about it, because all I can think about is what happened in Philly after Doug Peterson was fired. Like, how did this become irreparable with ownership or whatever reason he wants to get away with the fan base or whatever? The bottom line is this: Carson Wentz has a lot of talent. We all know that. We all have seen Carson Wentz play at a very high level, and even at times lift his team above what they probably should be. We saw that, but we also saw this year. And this year was concerning not because of quarterback play. I think quarterbacks can be fixed. I watched Baker Mayfield get fixed this year with Kevin Stefanski. I've seen it transpire, and guys get better being in the right system. I'm worried about Carson Wentz managing a locker room and managing when things get hard. That's my concern. So if he gets traded, a team has to know he's willing to accept the bad times as well as the good times, and be able to cipher through that and still compete at a high level and play at a high level. That's what I want to see. It looks like it's done in Philly, obviously, with Graz and also Shefty reporting that. But I want to see Carson Wentz respond to adversity, because based on what I've seen so far this year, with everything that transpired in Philly, he did not do well at that. And I do not believe you can be successful in this league at the quarterback position if I have to question if you're mentally tough enough when things get hard.
Well, look, we started this by talking about all the intangibles that Brady brings, and now it feels like we're having the opposite conversation, and have been for a while. Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, listen, I disagree. I mean, not with Swagoo, but with whoever's talking about this, the Jared Goff part of this equation. I mean, I think Carson Wentz has played better than listen. Jared Goff was with one of the best offensive minds in our game right now in play calling and design to help him with the run game, offensive line, that kind of thing, good defense. So he kind of had everything. In Philly, they had a good defense, but their line was decimated with injuries. Carson Wentz is running for his life. You just saw what Mahomes looked like getting that kind of pressure to the Super Bowl. How about if that's every week? And that was kind of what happened with Wentz this season. He was getting, and listen, he didn't play good. I'm not giving the guy an excuse card, but he played under some terrible circumstances. To act like he's not or the same as Jared Goff, I just don't buy that. I think he's on the upside of this trade, and I do think teams will get him back. Into Swagoo's point, you can rehab a quarterback. You don't need him to be the guy in the locker room if you've already got that maturity in the locker room. I think he's a guy you go to.
All right, we will keep an eye on this. I have to take a quick break here. We have much more as we continue, including on the way, the interesting oversight from the Cowboys involving Dak Prescott that definitely got our attention and got his brother's attention as well. You will see it. You will be amazed. Plus, the Patriot way very much on the field on Sunday night. Did Tampa Tom's 7th ring